Hey, welcome to our explainer. Today we're diving into a method for memorizing the Quran that completely flips the script. Seriously. It takes the single most frustrating part of the whole journey, forgetting, and turns it into something positive, a way to connect and even get rewarded. I know, it sounds a little crazy, but stick with me. It all starts with a question I think you'll recognize. Does this look familiar? Have you ever felt like you're just stuck in this loop? You put in the hours, you pour your heart into it, you recite the verses until you're sure you've got it. And then, just a few days later, it's gone. It's so frustrating, right? It's the one thing that makes so many of us feel like just throwing in the towel. And this is that loop right here. Step 1, you memorize. Step 2, you get that awesome, brief little moment of confidence. And then, poof. Step 3, it's gone. You forget. Again. And you're right back at the beginning. But here's a wild thought. What if this cycle isn't actually a sign of failure? What if it's kind of part of the point? Okay, so to break out of this loop, the answer isn't some fancy new memory trick. It's something way deeper. It's a complete shift in mindset, a divine reframe, you could call it. It's all about stopping our obsession with the final result and instead learning to truly value the journey. It's about shifting our focus from the results to the effort. This right here is the absolute heart of this whole method. This verse promises us that what God sees and what he actually rewards is our striving, our tzedakah. It's the effort. It's not about having a perfect, flawless memory. The real focus is on the beautiful, sacred act of just trying. And you can really see the difference here. When you only focus on the result, on perfect recall, what do you get? Pressure, anxiety, and a whole lot of frustration. But when you switch your focus to the effort, to the striving, the journey itself becomes the reward. The goal becomes peace and this ongoing connection with the words, not just a perfect score on a memory test. All right, so we've reframed our why. That's the big picture stuff. Now, let's get practical. How do we actually turn this idea of striving into something we can do every day? Well, the method breaks it all down into two really simple parts. So the whole thing rests on two main pillars. First, and this is crucial, you build a really deep foundation of understanding using something called mind maps. And only after you truly get what it all means do you move on to step 2, locking it in through repetition. I think this is the main reason most of us forget. We're memorizing sounds, not stories. We try to remember a string of words without any context. So the first step of this method fixes that. The entire goal is to deeply understand the story, the logic, and the flow of the verses before you even think about memorizing them. Let's make this real with an example from Surah Al-Baqarah. Instead of just reading the lines and trying to brute force them into our memory, the mind mapping technique starts by asking questions. It tries to uncover the story. So for instance, the text says Abraham was chosen by God. Okay, cool. So we ask why? What was so special about him? And boom, the answer is sitting right there in the very next verse. It wasn't some long, complicated resume. The reason he was chosen was because of his immediate, absolute, no questions asked submission. God said submit, and without a moment's hesitation, Abraham replied, I have submitted. That split-second devotion, that's the key. And this is how you literally build the mind map. You start with that main idea, Abraham's way. Then you start branching out with questions from the text. We just asked, why was he chosen? And we found the answer. His instant submission. So you connect those two. The verses also ask who would turn away from this path, and the answer is those who abandon his way. And finally, what did he tell his own children? To stay on that same path of submission. See what happened? By connecting these dots, you've turned a bunch of separate lines into one single story that your brain can actually grab onto. Okay, so that brings us to repetition, and this is where the magic happens. Once you have this mental map, once you actually get the story, repetition completely changes. It's not a chore anymore. It's not this painful struggle to remember sounds that don't mean anything. It just becomes the simple act of reviewing a story you already know and feel connected to. This step, at-takrar in Arabic, is now all about turning that deep understanding into effortless recall. You're not trying to build the house from scratch every time. The foundation is already there, solid, because of your mind map. Now, you're just reinforcing it. So let's bring it all home. With this new way of thinking, we can go all the way back to our original problem, that awful feeling of forgetting, and see it with totally new eyes. Your whole journey is about to get redefined. This, right here, is the biggest takeaway of all. When your goal is the striving, not perfection, then forgetting is no longer a failure. It's just not. It isn't a sign that you're not good enough or that you can't do it. It loses all of its power over you. In fact, forgetting actually becomes a good thing. It's an invitation to go back. It's another chance to engage with the words, to strive, to reconnect with the meaning, and, get this, to earn a fresh reward for that new effort. Every single time you forget and go back, you are striving all over again. And that is exactly what's being seen and valued. This quote from Najla Mohammed, the source for this explainer, just says it all perfectly. You are responsible for the effort. That's your part. God is in charge of the result. That simple idea frees you from the heavy burden of perfection and lets you actually find joy in the process. And that leaves us with this one last thought to chew on. What if this whole process was never really about just remembering words? What if the cycle of forgetting and relearning is the very thing designed to keep you coming back, again and again, turning a simple task into a relationship that never ever ends? Thanks for watching.